There's one specific kind of person who exists in everyone's life. They don't need an explanation of what happened. They look at the situation, go quiet for a moment, and then they just start. No yelling, no panic, no searching for someone to hand the problem to. They simply move toward the broken thing while everyone else moves away from it. And if you've ever stood close to someone like that in a moment of crisis, you know that feeling. Your heart speeds up, your hands go cold, and somewhere in your mind a question appears that you can't say out loud. What is the difference between us? Why them, and why not me? Because that calm, that movement toward the problem instead of away from it, doesn't look like a learned skill. It looks like this person is built differently. In the 1950s, psychologist Julian Rotter was studying one specific question. When a person fails at something, what do they believe is the cause? Who or what is responsible? What he found was that people divide fundamentally into two groups. The first group believes outcomes are primarily determined by their own actions. The second group believes outcomes are primarily determined by circumstances. Luck, other people, fate, he called the first internal locus of control. The second, external, and the difference between these two groups wasn't in intelligence, experience, or talent. The difference was in what the brain attached to the word broken. For someone with an internal locus, a broken situation means something isn't working, and my action might change that. The nervous system doesn't switch into alarm mode. The brain starts searching. For someone with an external locus, the same situation means something happened to me and now let's see who shows up to fix it. The nervous system does exactly what it was built to do, scans for danger signals and either freezes or runs. But Rotter argued this isn't a trait you're born with. It's a conclusion, slowly over years, verified through 1,000 small moments where either your action mattered or it didn't, which means these people became this way, often without anyone realizing they were teaching it. And now we need to talk about the part that gets left out most often. There's a common assumption that the people who are best at solving problems grew up in stable, safe environments. Some patient adult taught them. Some parent was always there. Someone put their hand in the right place at the right moment. That happens, but it's only one path. The second path is far more common than we admit. The most broken people become the best fixers. A child who always had something breaking at home, physically, emotionally, financially, and couldn't rely on anyone whose job it was to fix things, that child learned one fundamental lesson: either me or no one. That child learned that stopping is expensive, that waiting for someone to show up sometimes means waiting forever. So they started, made mistakes, tried again. The brain stored every small win, every moment where action changed the outcome, and slowly, without any instruction, the structure we call the person who figures everything out took shape. This didn't become trauma, it became experience. The difference is simple. Trauma shows you the world is dangerous. Experience shows you the world is fixable. Here I need to stop and tell you something directly that videos like this usually avoid. We talk about these people, these fixers, as if they're the winners. As if this trait is a prize that came from a good childhood, the right parents, the right experiences. But who recognizes themselves most often in this description? People who say, that's me and I paid a price for it. The person who figures everything out often also can't sleep, can't ask for help, can't say, I don't know. Fixers often need everyone around them to be okay because an unresolved situation outside feels exactly like an unresolved situation inside. This isn't a superpower. It's often a childhood strategy that followed someone into adult life. So before we get to how to become a fixer, it's worth asking yourself, do you want to become one or do you want to start acting? Because acting that you can do right now, at any scale. When you watch the person who stands in front of a problem, they look certain. At first glance, it seems like they know exactly how this will end. Ask them honestly, and they'll tell you, I don't know if it's going to work. I have exactly the same uncertainty you do. The difference is that uncertainty isn't a death signal to them. In psychology, this quality is called ambiguity tolerance, the ability to exist inside a situation where the answer doesn't exist yet and stay there without falling apart. Most people need the answer, everything will be okay, before they can begin. And when they can't get that assurance, anxiety blocks action. These people learn to endure not knowing. They function under a question mark, as if the question mark was always there and always will be. If you're watching this and recognizing that your problems always get handed to someone else, to this person, this specialist, someone who will handle it better, I want to tell you one thing that probably no one has said to you directly. You don't fail to manage. You were trained not to. The difference between those two sentences is everything. The first says the problem is in you. The second says the problem is in history. And history, that's the past. The past is the one thing that genuinely cannot change anymore. But you are still changing. The brain needs evidence, not promises. So don't look for motivation. Don't wait for the right moment. Do one small thing right now that you would normally hand to someone else. the brain stores it. And in the next situation, you'll pause 1 second sooner, you'll move 1 second earlier. That's how the person who figures everything out begins, not with a